Hi, my name is Benedict. This is going to be one of those videos where I don't play any music. You see the door is not open. If that's going to bother you, if you're only here to hear me play sounds, okay, fine. I'm looking at the bigger question of the sudden obsession with AI. And I've held off for a while. People have been asking me, oh, what do you think, Benedict? And they've also been asking me, I think the more relevant question, what do you think of those plugins that do the music bit for you? You know, the ones that, got chord packs or, here, look, press these buttons and we'll make the melody and give you all the bits and pieces. And I don't think much of them, to be perfectly blunt. It would be kind of like tracking down Eddie Van Halen, hiring him to play guitar, and then getting back some kind of guff where somebody used a virtual guitar and you can tell the difference. You probably wouldn't be too happy with the Edster and would feel a little bit gypped. But some people aren't going to care. So this is one of those things where I'm clearly seeing a big divide in that people sort of go one of two ways, and then there are those who sort of pretend they're being broad and go in the middle, but really they're more choosing a particular path, but just being unwilling to sort of say, look, there is a divide here, and there is a divide. The simple question is, will AI change music? Well, in short, no, not really. Why? Well, I think that what's going to happen, or what people think is going to happen, has already happened. I think the ship has already set sail. As to where we ultimately go, well, no one can really predict the future. Even Nostradamus, sorry, old Paul Hogan joke, is so broad as to have to be interpreted and then people debate. I'm not here to predict future. I'm not that kind of a psychic or psychotic, I'm not sure. But we can look at patterns and project. And I think that all we can project is what we've already got, which is that those divisions have already happened, but a lot of people haven't decided to commit one way or another. And my focus is always on the musician who's trying to find a path. So the subtitle here is how to find a path in what we've got and what's going to sort of come from what we've got. The very first caveat that I have to make is that AI does not exist. People are busy posting these photos, and I'm not going to bother showing you any of them because I think they're abomination. Photos that some supposed AI has made, and they're like Van Gogh with somebody with 17 fingers and what have you, and it's technically a little interesting, but it's kooky and disturbing. Not because of 10 fingers. Dali made some real weird-ass paintings, as did Van Gogh himself, but without getting into any of the how they're doing it, it is creepy because they are soulless. Now, some people think that's really great, and they think that's amazing. I find it offensive because these images are completely soulless. They are purposeless. So AI as such does not exist. We would like to think that these are the result of some kind of thinking machine like Data from Star Trek, someone that we could go and have a conversation with and have a nice spot of tea. The reality, however, is that that kind of AI does not exist. And that it's being sold that way is Pinocchio knows, because it's not there. We don't even know how far away we are from it. It's possible we may never get there. Or that if we do get there, that it's so alien to us as to be purple dishwasher monkey in terms of conversation. What we do have is what's referred to as weak AI, which is really heuristics, which is a set of preset rules. It used to be called fuzzy logic. Your air conditioner may have fuzzy logic, as in when you're in the room, the air conditioner turns itself on and does the thing. When you're not in the room or you sit incredibly still, then the fuzzy logic can go, there is no one in this room, why waste the electricity, and fall back into another mode, or potentially turn itself off. we've got that kind of fuzzy logic in lots of things. Televisions turn themselves off. Your Bluetooth thing probably turns itself off if it hasn't had an input for a while. It's just heuristics. It's saying, if I'm not receiving a signal, the likelihood of needing to be here is none. I'm leaving. But to put it that way has humanized it. That's like painting eyes on a rock. It hasn't made the rock intelligent. And I'm not talking about the actor. I'm talking about a pebble. So what we really have is calculators. We have calculators that are a little bit more clever than but they're still just calculators. They have more ability to do things, but they're still just calculators. In terms of music, music is an art form. It's about communication. For some people, it's not. Okay, that's fine. It's your business. You are on a different path from me. We will discuss the path that I believe you are on in as non-judgy way as possible. But if you feel the need to be judgy with me, I'm either going to absolutely tear you a new one for totally missing the point of the discussion, or simply delete your comment as being irrelevant and therefore spam or trolling. Machines cannot feel until we achieve some kind of data-like AI, positronic man, whatever, then these things can't feel, therefore they have no reason for the things they do. Which is why when we look at those AI pictures, go find them, they're all over the internet. If we are a feeling person looking for communication in those pictures, we actually find them creepy. Not because of the 10 fingers or whatever, but because they are completely without feeling. They are without purpose. They have less purpose than an advert for socks. Because at least with the advert for socks, we know that they're asking us, do you want to buy my socks? And if you want to buy socks, well, reference to an earlier video. Machines can't feel, therefore they have no reason for doing the things they're doing. Therefore, why have we got them meddling in the most human of activities or the most sentient of activities? When a bot becomes sentient, in other words, becomes like Data from Star Trek, then I think it'll be most interesting to look at what they create and why. And at some point, they will start to develop something that in their own terms resembles art, but it may make little to no sense to us. So it may be the equivalent of Vogon or Klingon poetry, in that we have to learn its language. It'll be possibly scarier than jazz. Because they will make it for themselves. The moment they're making it for us, that's not really art, it's pandering. Now maybe there will come a point where there's enough crossover between data like humanoids or sentient things that aren't us, that we do start to make art for each other. You know, the way that French people make art for British people, and British people, well, try to ignore the French. There could be that kind of crossover. So we may end up with some kind of other alternative to ethnic or world music, which is going to incorporate. But that's pointless to discuss because it doesn't exist. What we have is essentially what I put into an article a couple of years ago. I actually forgot to look at the date, where I pointed out that essentially we now have two music industries. So this is the part where I really talk more for and about how to find your own path as a creator, specifically a musician, but any kind of creator. This is the path that we've got. We've got two music industries. And while people would like to think that you can bridge the two are quite separate. So one is we've got what we'll call the corporate. That's the formal, the existing, the legacy music industry that is largely selling us pop, manufactured pop. And the way that works, and it has done for years, because I was talking to somebody who was talking to somebody and is actually set up to do this stuff, they work with a spider-like, which is AI-like, or what we call AI these days, a spider-like creation process, whereby the artist can sign themselves up, like a creator, let's say me as Benedict producer, I can sign myself up with a record label, and I'm assigned a wallet. And when I make something, I go, do, isn't that clever? I can pop that in my wallet. And there's somebody at the record label, or probably a collection of somebodies, who just filter through wallets. They go, oh, what have we got? What have we? Oh, that sounds interesting. And they can pick that up and put that in somebody else's wallet. So my wallet may suddenly have a bit of doo-da, doo-da, doo-da that's come from somewhere else because the person who was looking at it, the spider, said, oh, there's some sort of similarity. What if we put these together? Maybe we can get Benedict to make something of these other parts. In which case I get the thing and I do something or other with it. It goes back in my wallet. The spider looks at it again. This is how we've got songs being written by a huge number of people. Because what happens is people are writing little bits and pieces randomly, the spider is putting them together. Yes, the spider may be predominantly managed by a person at the moment, but it is essentially what we're thinking of as AI composition. The downside of that is like having a calculator write a song for us, which is what this current AI chatbot stuff is that it is, well, transient and trivial. Because what they're chasing is the fast buck, the pop environment, so we get songs that are gibberish. But not cool gibberish, just kind of gibberish. And some people really like that, and that's okay, that's a path. They are welcome to take that. It's not for everyone, obviously not for me. The other music industry that we have is a truly independent music industry, independent of that pathway. That pathway being largely towards making something trivial that can go up on Spotify, please some other algorithm, and people can go, and it'll be forgotten really very quickly. The other path is independent, which is largely driven by standalone individuals working at home. There are some little labels that work this area. Some of them really are just elements of people trying to play corporate. Some of them are corporate backed, and maybe there will be a transition, but it's not going to be the same as a transition where an act like The Cure signs up to a little label, Stun I think it was, and then gets to the point where that little label either on-sells them or distributes through a major, and then maybe The Cure get picked up directly by Sony Records or something like that when they get big enough for Sony to say, look, we need to manage you directly because you're like George Michael, dudes. That's not so likely to happen these days. So we've got independent. Now, the independent artists, they are different, but they need to be different, and they need to play a very different path. Many of them are making the mistake of trying to appeal to the corporate approach. But the true independents, they are grassroots songwriters. Their focus is still on longevity and storytelling. There are some who are putting their focus on novelty, which is that they are just doing lots of let's make videos, and you could possibly throw that hand grenade at me and possibly have some merit to it if you can explain it. But with the stunning lack of popularity of my videos, chances are your hand grenade is going to be a dud, but you have a right to at least mount an argument, but not just throw an empty hand grenade. So that side is about longevity and making sure that stories are being told, but they are two completely discrete things. Because we have essentially two types of fans. We'll have fans who like to say there's something else, or I'm both, or whatever. But that's kind of like somebody who does nothing but listen to whoever the current pop starlet who turns up to a goth club wearing fairy wings and says, I'm a goth as well, darling. You're kind of like, carry on, my dear, and whatever. It's not about gatekeeperiness. Take that argument away. And if you start making that argument, then I'll know you haven't watched this video. Delete. There are really two types of fans, which match the two types of industry. There's the pop fan, and that can be forms of death metal or whatever, but it's populist. It's the trivial, it's the casual. They're there for just a quick... I've referred to it as being a drug, like being put onto an intravenous drug. They're just there for that next, whatever fashionable hip blippy noise is going to be. And then the other side are the more serious. Now, if we go back to a very old paradigm, then we might say that's the massive apparent difference between a classical music head or a jazz head who's very serious about everything, and a rock music fan who's only serious about getting drunk. That sense that there were two completely divergent paths which didn't have any in between, until, of course, we started realizing that we could prog rock. But we have got these two, and I don't think there's as much crossover, at least not for the grassroots artist who's working their way up. I don't think you want to be trying to say, I'm going to do both at once, because I think it's going to faceplant for you. Each of these fans is after an experience. The pop fan is after staying in the fashion. If suddenly everybody's going out wearing fairy wings, they're going to be buying a set of fairy wings so they can prove how happening and hip they are. And if somebody sort of wears the wrong colour fairy wings, they're going to tend to be all kind of like, well, you're not cool. They're the gatekeepery types. They're after the beat, the constant adrenaline thing, that drug that's drip, 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 drip. Fine. They are attaching themselves to Spotify playlists, not to particular artists. They only know the names of particular artists because it's fashionable to say, oh, I so love the new blah, 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 blah single. The other side are people who are looking for human connection. And as you might be starting to think, the two don't really meet. So it's a little like saying, well, we've got a Bob Dylan fan on one side, the classic idea of Bob Dylan being the real thing, and the Bay City Rollers on the other, who are supposedly a manufactured group. They're two completely different paths because they don't want what each other want. And as soon as you've gone too far to one side, and by too far I don't mean at 50-50 in the middle, I think that it's probably much off either side, the audiences are going to be unhappy. Like, we know now that pop audiences can largely only listen to music that's too loud, mixed too wide, and auto-tuned, mellow-tuned, whatever. I don't care what process is used. If it's not heavily tuned, flattened, robotized, dehumanized, then they can't actually listen to it. It bothers them. Much the same as it bothers me to see that stupid AI art, that soulless, disgusting stuff. It bothers me to have to listen to songs that are just like roboted flat, when it's like, okay, I'm not obsessive about whether someone's in tune. I'm obsessive about, are they telling me an amazing story? Lou Reed could sing out of tune for a whole record to still tell amazing stories. And yet, the modern pop audience, if it isn't pulled perfectly, they can't actually abide it. They're like... So there is this big difference. Now, as I say, these fans are very, very split, and you can only ride one path. If you're looking to have some kind of impact in the music space, to have an audience, you have to pick a path. But pick a path that you can actually work with. Bear in mind that the corporate, the pop audience, largely only listen to what they're told to listen to. They don't care what they're getting, remember? They only know the names of Justin Bieber or Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift. They only know these names because they're told them. They're not going out of their way going, oh, there's this guy called Joe Pug. I found him as I was looking around for amazing independent artists, and I found Joe Pug and I'm listening to him. They're not saying this to their friends. The people who are looking and finding somebody like Joe Pug, who's a true indie, he's one of the pioneers in a sense of the new indie thing, they're not listening to pop. There's this complete divide, so you've got to choose which. If you think that, I'm going to do a little bit of pop, so that I can get in front of the Taylor Swift fans, the Ed Sheeran fans, you're going to find that they're not looking for you. They're not even going to pay attention to you if you exist, unless there's somebody corporately sponsoring you, in which case you probably have to go the other path, which is of building human connection. Now, human connection can be achieved in lots and lots of different ways, and this is the wonderful thing. ABBA built tremendous human connection. Tremendous. You look at Gimme, Gimme, Gimme a Man After Midnight or Dancing Queen. There is so much human connection inside those songs. Even Bay City Rollers, Saturday night, actually has a lot of human connection in it. Far more than people gave it credit for, which is why the songs still work. Or the Sweets, Wig Wham Bam, I'm Your Man, actually has human connection in it. So there's lots of different ways. You don't have to be writing songs about the Vietnam War to actually create human connection. You've just got to work out how to create human connection for the people who want what you do. It's about uniquifying yourselves. Which brings us to, how are we going to have music makers as we move forward? Bearing in mind that I think this has already happened. We have the industry spider, which I explained before, which is that the industry will drag anything and everything they can get their hands on so long as they see that it's going to turn over quick dollars. It's not like the old days where a label might sign an act like, Fleetwood Mac and sit on them for 2 years under what's called development, as in spending time seeing how they develop and doing what they can with managers and A&R guys to help the band to develop. And that's to develop to get a real audience. It's not the trivial, like, we'll teach you a couple of dance moves that you see on Idol-type contests. The industry doesn't do that anymore. They get you, if they can't make money from you fast, they don't grab you in the first place, or they drop you hard and fast. The talent is, as such, worthless and entirely disposable, which is why you can look at a lot of these pop stars. If you're a music lover, you can look at a lot of these pop stars and not even know what their names are, and even struggle to be able to kind of tell the difference one from another. They all seem to very much look like each other, which is part of why some of them do like the Cardi G Anne thing, and she's a forgotten name now, or Nikki Big Bum, and try to look absurd or ridiculous. The guys who tattoo their faces or whatever, to try to have something that people might actually remember them over everyone else who looks exactly like them, who sounds exactly like them, who's doing exactly the same kind of contentless stuff as them. That's the path that the main industry, the Spotify, what have you, will use. Simply because it's about creating that little drip, 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 drip of adrenaline, that it's all faceless. So people who get picked up or used by the industry will largely be kind of freelancers and will be dropped at a moment's notice. So remember the wallet? I could make something, put it in the wallet, someone else could take that out of the wallet, do something with it. I have no real control over that. It's just fragments. The other side is what I would call the true indie artist. Now there I'm using a picture of Jackson Browne. If you don't know Jackson Browne, you probably should. If you're wanting to consider and understand the path that I'm talking about, find some Jackson Browne. The easiest way is to grab a best of and sit down and listen to it and understand it. What makes Jackson Browne great? What makes Jackson Browne great is that he has this tremendous human connection and ability to express that through stories. That's why I've chosen him rather than the more cliched Bob Dylan here. The songs by the true indie acts are going to be written by hand, because remember, the fans of this path, they want to know that it is from the hand of Jackson Browne to their ears. That is not from the hand of some random spider or some third-party songwriter. Remember, through the 70s and 80s, there was a bit of backlash against, this artist doesn't write their songs. It was pathetic. I don't know that Frank Sinatra ever wrote a song, but he was a tremendous singer. Madonna took some time to write songs, but she was a tremendous entertainer. But nonetheless, there is going to be this feeling of, I want to interact with this person. I want to know the unique worldview of Jackson Browne. I don't want to know the mishmash of some random people or a bot who's spitting out garbage. So songs will be written by hand. Everything is about true talent. Now, understand this is not about showing off, saying, oh, look, I'm super talented because I can play 4,000 notes a second. We see those. We've been seeing them for some time. They're always there. No, they won't last very long. They will be a flash in the pan because there's always somebody who can play 4,004 notes a second. And the moment somebody sees them, well, you're pretty bloody useless, aren't you? Because you can only play 4,000 notes a second. It's about having a real ability to connect with people. So again, listen to Jackson Browne. Work out how and why he connects with people. It may take you a bit if you are not used to this style of music. But once you've gotten to the point of making sense of him, compare him to an Ed Sheeran, and you'll go, oh. That's the path that I think is the most viable for anybody who doesn't have a serious deal. Because you have to have some way to make people choose to pay attention to you over everyone else. And buying increasingly stupid jackets is just not going to get you there, because the people who are impressed by stupid jackets are not actually in your marketplace at all. They're not wandering around where you are. In which case, your ace in the hole needs to be your ability to connect with people in some way that is powerful. If you chase trivia, like doing the tok-tok kind of thing, and just going, here, look at my boobies, you might get some traffic, but you're not going to build anything that actually turns into anything, because it's trivia. You're chasing the wrong thing. You need to build connection. Connection is everything. Now, we've also got a third type of musician who has appeared. I would like to say they're not musicians at all, and they will get real bent at me for this, but work with me on this. I'm calling them gamers. Under the concept that what they're really playing is a game called Song Hero, as in Guitar Hero, that they will use anything that's cheap and fast, especially if it has the tag Pro on it. And these are the ones who are already buying into the idea that, well, AI can write my songs for me. I can use these tools that just make it easy for me because it's fast, and oh, they give me inspiration. Hang on, if I'm an artist and I can't find inspiration from looking at the world around me, hopping on Facebook and going, I've just got an album in the can ready to come out, which is a result of things that have happened to me and things that I have seen on Facebook over the couple of months in which I was writing that record. So it's a bit of a backhand record in many ways. If you can't find your own inspiration, if you can't put a couple of notes on the page and listen to them and go, what do I feel like these, where do these want to go? If you can't connect with the song gods and you need AI or something to do that for you, you're really not a musician. I'm sorry to say, being a musician, being a creator, is about creating from seemingly nothing. But the seemingly nothing doesn't exist. It is the reality of what is around you. You don't need something to be saying, here's, look, a preset drum beat that pretends it's John Bonham. Or Jason Bonham, who's pretending to be John Bonham. Sorry, Jason, I know you're a good drummer, but you found the path that works for you. Good on you. More power to you. But they will use anything that's cheap and fast. And especially if it has the tag Pro. We have seen that develop over the last 20 years, and I've fought very hard against it, and I've been kicked in the teeth time and time again by people who are, well, offended when you point it out. Well, I'm offended by what you're doing. We have that right. We each have a right to our feelings. I'm allowing you the right to that feeling. You've got to allow me that right too. If you don't, there's something wrong. It means you're lying to yourself. Talent is hoped for in this situation, but never developed, which is what I'm pointing to above. They will find an AI tool to do it for them. They will, buy easy something or other, which for them, rather than going, okay, how do I program that? How do I find my style as a kind of a person? They don't want to develop talent, true talent. Some of them develop flashiness, but they don't develop true talent, which I'm pointing to as being, let's say, Jackson Browne is the epitome of true talent. And they then proceed to try, the gamers proceed to try to be one or both of the above paths of pop industry, Spider, or a true indie. So they will say, oh, but I'm indie, but I'm making pop. Okay, but they're not making alternative pop. The later, well, all the way through the 80s and the early 90s was full of alternative pop. Voice of the Beehive. I guess Nirvana were alternative pop until they became mainstream pop. The Cure were kind of a pop band, but they were sort of alternative at the same time. There was tons and tons of that stuff. Thompson Twins were really an alternative act who said, okay, well, if we better get some nice haircuts and give this a go to see if we can actually build some real success. And so that's why there was always something a little bit left field about them. The average person said, oh, well, they're just very ordinary pop, simply because they didn't know the difference. The first Tears for Fears record with Mad World, the real version of Mad World on it, were alternative pop. And a lot of that got successful. But that was when there was a tremendous open-mindedness in audiences. Now we don't have open-mindedness, we have a real separation. So these people who are trying to be both at once will fall in the hole in the middle because they aren't flashy enough to actually get, or they don't have the connections enough to actually get into the adrenaline drip, drip, drip. They aren't getting onto the Spotify profiles, and largely because they haven't developed what that side calls talent enough. There's nothing dramatic enough about them. Most of the time they don't even buy an amazing natty jacket to get people attracted to them. So in many ways, those that are just going, here, look at my huge boobies, and wiggle them around, are probably doing a slightly better attempt at marketing themselves than those who are doing the gamer approach to music. And it's sad, but whatever, that's up to them. They are playing. Unfortunately, they're muddying the waters, simply because they're not bothering the top end of town, the Spotify or what have you. Spotify is happy to have all this garbage given to them for free. They don't care that nobody listens to it. They'll send you an email saying, congratulations, you got 4 plays this month. Aren't you heroic? But they don't care. They're largely making their own garbage to fill their own... Look it up. You can't do both. Don't try to do both. If you are just being a gamer, the most honest thing that you can do is to not pretend that you're playing on the same stage. Otherwise, it's the equivalent of me, who really can't sing, saying, I should be on the same stage as Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart can sing. He's a tremendous singer, a really powerful entertainer. Not so much in the last few years, unfortunately, but the real Rod Stewart is, for me to say I belong on the same stage as him is, well, it's insulting to everybody. Not only Rod the Mod, but listeners who might, appreciate Rod the Mod and discover what I do and go, because I'm no good at that stuff. There are things that I'm good at. Find a path and work out how to be the true indie. You don't have to look like Jackson Browne. You don't have to write songs like the Eagles. But you have to do something that's actually going to attract genuine people and genuine audiences. If you're a gamer, I would prefer, not that you can't put your stuff out there, but put it in a way that it is not interfering with those who are doing this seriously. And one of the problems with gamers is that they believe they are super serious about it. So be it. This is why the industry traditionally had what we call gatekeepers, as in record labels, that would say, hey, you're good. We know that audiences deserve to hear you. It wasn't necessarily about audiences going to pay you money. Audiences deserve to hear you, which is why acts like Joni Mitchell say, who are like, don't know how to listen to that. But once people were exposed to her enough, they're like, wow, Joni's amazing. And Joni is amazing. I still can't listen to it, but Joni's amazing. So you need to sort of pick a path. Should you care about AI? Becomes back to the bottom line. Well, it depends which path you take. If you're playing in pop, and particularly if you're a gamer, well, then you're going to welcome it and you're going to be all about it because you're going to think this is going to do it for you and make life easy. Go for it. If you're an indie, you are probably best to shun it and never use it, even for starters. But it gives me starters, just says you're a gamer. And that means that your fan base who are looking for genuine human connection, they're looking to connect with a human, with a song that says something about that person's life and therefore something about their life. You're best off shunning this AI and things that write your music for you. You want to be seen to kick that to the curb as hard and as fast as possible. So if you make a record, and I'm already seeing them, if you make a record which is supposedly about you and, great music, and then whack one of those AI art pictures on it because it's better than any stickman you could draw, then you have just bazookaed yourself in the foot. Because people are going to see that soulless image, and if they are real audience, like as in fans of real art as opposed to the pop stuff, then they're just going to go and walk away. You'd be better off doing something that was a bit hokey, but at least was real. Why not take a photo of your face? Not a photo of your keyboards, because no one gives a flying banana peel. That just screams, I'm a gamer. If your the front cover is your 3,000 keyboards on your wall, you're a gamer. And maybe some other gamers will look at your record and say, oh, wow, you've got like 14 keyboards more than me. Bow, I'm not worthy. But they won't buy your record, largely because they don't buy anybody's record because they're pop fans. Maybe pop fans within that audience, in which case they're Retro Blaze or something or other, whatever it is called this week. Shun this kind of stuff. Build something real. Force people to realize that you are the real deal. And that way, building your audience will be slow, but if anybody who thinks they're building their audience is going to be fast is either waving their big boobies around, hoping that their big boobies are bigger and bouncier than everybody else's on Tok, or they're practical enough to realize that without a massive record label and delivering tripe, that's not in their cards. There are going to also be pop people who try to appeal to the indie crossover. We've had that for ages. Green Day, Blink-182, what's her name, Skater Boy, he's just a skater boy or something or other, I can't remember. These girls who wear a t-shirt with some spangle and say rock chick. That's just pop. It's just posing. It's kind of like playing ABBA with heavy metal guitars. It's not genuine. It's trying to be clever, trying to pretend that you're more real than other people, but it's still just drip, 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 trivial. Their career spans will probably be incredibly short unless they transition to full drivel mode. And the number of people who get into that and actually last is going to be very small. Hence, looking at, say, Cardi G and Nicki Minaj, who everyone's already forgotten about, against a Taylor Swift or an Ed Sheeran, who've had longevity, and people go because they're talented. It's like, I don't know what it is, but they are unique. All the other ones are, people wouldn't pay $2 to go see them at the Bowls Club. Pick a path, work it fully. You are not on the pop path until you're actually on the pop path. Until then, you're actually in the indie path. You can do pop. You're wiser doing alternative pop, unless, of course, you're just playing covers down the boozer, in which case you're probably a gamer, what we used to call a weekend warrior. And that is okay. You're a person who plays in a cover band on the weekend for fun. You play Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga and Nicki Big Bum songs, whatever's currently fashionable, and then you go to work on Monday. You're a gamer, that's okay. Your ability to transition to suddenly being the next Nicki Big Bum and Forgotten in 2 weeks probably isn't there unless you've got some kind of connection. Billie Eilish did not go from having her brother knock together some songs with hammer and nails and being on the red carpet kissed by Elton John next week. There was years of work, and they are connected. They are industry connected, and they were paying people who are industry connected to get them in. So unless you have that, it's best not to go down that path. And even there, they have tried to appeal to the other side of things to try to keep their ball rolling longer. Fair enough, good on them, they're playing their game. But if you've got nothing going for you in terms of like you don't have this machine behind you, pick your path, work it fully. You cannot be lazy, unless of course you're a gamer, in which case you can be as lazy as you like, because really what you're doing is just shooting monsters. Pow, 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 pow. You're having fun, and good on you for having fun. But if you are serious about this, you can't be lazy. You have to throw your heart and soul into everything you do, and you have to work out how to build a human connection. Because if that's the path you've got, that's the industry that you're in. You need to buy your fans one by one by connecting with you. I've done that. I've got a very tiny fan base, but I've done that. Those people have, for whatever reason, connected with me one by one. If you have any questions about the content, please make sure you've watched this first. I'll know if you haven't, then ask on down below. If you're wanting to hire me to discuss, to help you to understand how to work a path for yourself, this is what I do. These videos are about showing what I do. They're not about novelty, hence why no singing and dancing or wobbling boobies. Then ask on down below. Study me, understand me, work out what you're trying to do, come to me, explain that, and then we can look at building a relationship. Either way, whatever you're doing, thanks for your time. If you've got this far, pick your path, work it really hard. You have fun with that.